Yeah, so we had 3 couples, and each of them was amazing in their own right. In 1995, when they showed up for their first Vermont Freedom to Marry Task Force meeting in a dark church basement in Montpelier, there were like 8 of us. And I later learned that for the 2 of them, showing up at that meeting was an act of coming out. They had been together for nearly a quarter of a century and hadn't acknowledged their life partnership to anyone other than their closest intimates. They hadn't come out to their families. They hadn't come out in their workplaces. And then, as you know, they essentially came out on the front page of the New York Times when we filed the Baker versus Vermont lawsuit. They really came to the case as parents. When I asked them why they wanted to be involved in the first place, they pointed to their young child, Noah, and they said, if there's something about marriage that's good for kids, and a lot of people say there is, then we want Noah to have the same benefit as any child of heterosexual married parents. We want him to grow up in a world that says that his family, his parents, are just as worthy, just as respected by the laws in their community as any other family. And that's what this case was about.
In 1997, they were putting together a lawsuit in Chittenden County. A lot of them were based in Addison County, but they thought, just in terms of the rotation of judges, that Chittenden County was a better place to give a lawsuit a try, basically challenging the state on who can get civil marriage license. They had already brought together 2 lesbian couples. We sort of, talked to them about what would be involved, and then decided to become plaintiffs as well. And went to the town clerk's office and applied for a license, and they said, very nicely, let us get back to you. And then a few days went by, and they sent us a letter that was written by the lawyer for the town of Shelburne, saying that, at this point in time, that's not something that they do, and it was very polite and respectful. And that was sort of our admission ticket, if you will, because we needed to get denied in order to sort of move forward and challenge.
You can't have a lawsuit if there hasn't been,
right.
You haven't been told no yet.
There were
7
points on which it was challenged.
The state said we couldn't have it, and Judge Lindholm, who was then the Superior Court judge in Chittenden County, ruled against the state on 6 of those, but held for the state on 1 of them. And our sense, and our lawyer's sense, is that she really wanted to get it out of the Chittenden Court into the Supreme Court as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. So she said that she felt the state did have an interest in procreation, and that same-gender relationships might have a negative influence.
The justices reviewed it all, and they scheduled oral arguments for right before Thanksgiving 1998. Our job was basically just to kind of be present, be sort of a face to the issue. We had the oral arguments, and then after that, the court has as much time as they want to think about it and come up with a decision.
The lawsuit was based on the Common Benefits Clause of the Vermont Constitution, which says that no group of people or no class of people can have a right that another group does not have. Mm-hmm. And that was the basis of the lawsuit, which was a really good, strong basis that some other states don't have.
Maybe 4 to 6 months after the court hearings, we sort of thought, well, some Friday, we could be hearing about this. It was yes, these couples, need and deserve these benefits. But rather than just kind of instructing the town clerks to issue licenses to them, we're actually going to toss it to the legislature so that they can decide whether this need is best fulfilled by granting them, the right of marriage, or if some other sort of parallel but equal system can come forth. And it went from being, these three couples and these three lawyers in Chittenden County to being this immediate kind of statewide game, I'm going to say, really.
Imagine there's no heaven.
They talked about domestic partners, and I think people said it's more too much, sounds like you're cleaning somebody's house, but settled on civil union. And then our group, the plaintiffs and the lawyers and the major players in Vermont Freedom to Marry, had to come together at our lobbyist's office in Montpelier and decide if we would even accept that, or if we would say to the legislature, this is not good enough. And that was hard. It was a very, very hard conversation. And we decided in the end to go forward with civil union, feeling that if we said no to it, we might not get anything. We felt delighted with the language of the Baker decision that Judge Amistoy wrote and others wrote. And it was beautiful language about clearly saying all couples need the same rights and responsibilities. And at the same time, we felt disappointed that they hadn't said marriage. The word marriage itself carries an awful lot of freight with it, a lot of weight to it. And it felt like civil union was separate but equal.
That fall, there was actually sort of another big test in Vermont was whether the folks who voted for it in the spring would be reelected in the fall. And not all of them were, but many of them.
Those of us in the Freedom to Marry Task Force, which had gotten quite large by that time, really worked very hard to make sure that people who lost their seats got reelected the next time. And in fact, that happened. So that a few people lost their seats, but it didn't last for very long.
I need somebody help, not just anybody help. I need someone help. When I was young, so
I thought, I don't know if I can do this for 2 more years, and that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. And so that was just selfishly quite challenging. I also had a lot of confidence in our grassroots. I had confidence in our allies in the legislature, the Speaker of the House, and others. And I knew that the fight wasn't over. The night before the vote, I got home at about 10 o'clock that night. And at the time that I got home, we were 1 vote short still. And I would say that was the worst night of the whole 15-year process for me. I'm getting weepy thinking about it. And I wrote a press release for each scenario. I frankly didn't spend a lot of time on the good outcome because it seemed pretty clear at that point that we weren't going to win.
The vote came after a weekend of intense lobbying. No one knew if supporters could muster the 2/3 majority needed to override Republican Governor Jim Douglas's veto. The crowded House chamber erupted into applause as the vote was announced.
Please listen to the results of your vote. Those voting yes, 100. Those voting no, 49. 100 needed to pass. You have voted to override the veto. The House will come to order.
I don't think I really realized how I reacted when the last votes that we weren't sure about came, but a photographer got a picture of me that actually was on the front page of the New York Times, and I was leaning over to another gal who'd worked hard on the movement from very early on, and I was sobbing, and I think it was just such a sense of release and relief. Then it was a sense of triumph and excitement.
You could make what to some people was a bold step legally and have good results.
Vermont was a national leader in this twice. I think we played a pivotal role at 2 different junctures in sort of the national movement here. The Baker case was groundbreaking, even though we were disappointed in the outcome. in April 2000 when the Vermont legislature passed the civil union law. That was the most comprehensive set of legal protections available to same-sex couples anywhere in the country. And that really gave a shot in the arm to the movement. It was the first win after a lot of losses. In 2009, becoming the first state to do this by legislation, the rallying cry of the opposition up until that time had been, courts around the country are trying to cram this down our throats. This is a bunch of elitist judges in their black robes telling ordinary people that their values are wrong. So to have a legislature stand up, directly elected by the people, representing the people, and say, this is something we believe in, this is something we support, that really took it away from the opposition.
To watch Don't Ask, Don't Tell fall, to watch, to see that a majority of Americans are now in favor of gay marriage, that's huge.
Same-sex couples will soon be able to head to the altar in New York State. The state legalized gay marriage late last night. The vote was followed by celebrations in the streets of New York City. But this is, of course, still a very divisive issue, and the new law is sure to face some challenges.
Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are changing.
The debate over same-sex marriage in the United States, its legality and the rights for gay couples has been ramped up, with the highest court in the country getting involved for the first time. The Supreme Court has agreed to take up the ban in California and a separate dispute about federal benefits for legally married couples.
For me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
Our journey is not complete until our gay brothers and sisters are treated like anyone else under the law. For if we are truly created equal, then surely the love we commit to one another must be equal as well.
For the times they are a-changin'.